Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. Are you overfeeding your animals? Maybe. Stay tuned to find out more. If you haven't checked us out at www.linessafarms.com yet, make sure that you do. We have all kinds of downloadable forms and automated forms that's going to make your life a whole lot easier, and they're absolutely free. Just go to linessafarms.com and click in the upper right-hand corner where it says downloads, and you can have access to all of those as much as you want. Also, make sure to check us out on Facebook. We have a Facebook group exclusively for Linessa Farms viewers. It is called Linessa Farms Tack Box. Again, completely free, and we are going to start posting some exclusive videos just for our members at that location. So make sure that you check them out. Again, that's Linessa Farms Tack Box. You can search for that group at Facebook. So today we are talking about overfeeding our ewes and our does. This is a huge problem, overfeeding not just our ewes and does, but also our bucks and rams. Today we're going to talk specifically, though, about the ewes and the does. This is a huge problem. This is a huge issue. You know, we spend a lot of time here in our videos talking about underfeeding animals and the danger that comes from underfeeding and make sure that we're giving enough nutrition. But there's some serious dangers to overfeeding your animals as well. So beside the fact that you're going to be wasting a huge amount of money, you can also cause some pretty significant damage to your ewes and does as well. Okay, so the first thing that we worry about with overfeeding our ewes and our does, that is difficult deliveries, especially if the ewes and does are getting too much in the last stages of life, that is that last 4 to 6 weeks of gestation. All that weight is going to go to those babies, and then you're going to have issues when you're delivering. It's going to be more difficult for the mom to deliver. You're going to experience things like you're going to have to pull babies. Mom's going to be in labor. She's going to get stressed out. Babies are going to get stressed. Again, bad news. We really want to watch how much we're feeding our ewes and our does in that last part of our gestation period, the last 4 to 6 weeks. And this includes things that are often overlooked, specifically round bales. I am not a fan of round bales in the late gestation period. I don't advise it. Many veterinarians don't advise it. This is a huge problem for multiple reasons. The main one being that they're just going to sit there and eat as much as they want. They're going to put on that weight, and we're going to cause birthing issues later on down the road. So make sure, again, we are limiting. So again, we want to remember when we're feeding these animals, 1 flake of hay per head per day, and a good maintenance dose of a good quality grain, 12% grain or less for our ewes and our does, is only going to be about 1 to 2.5 pounds per head per day. So you're really pushing it there at a pound to 2.5 pounds a day is 2.5 pounds a day is really pushing it. So, you know, I would say closer to 1 pound than you want to be to 2.5, depending on that animal and how they hold their weight. But again, 1 flake per head per day, that means an average small square bale should be enough to feed 2 animals for a week. You have about 14 flakes in there. A 50-pound bag of feed, that should be enough to feed 50 animals. So again, that's a huge amount. If you're overfeeding, let's talk about how you can tell if you're overfeeding by looking at a general body condition on a sheep. All right, so I have a ewe here, and I want to look at her general body condition. You know, I don't want you guessing too much when it comes to body condition. Just kind of glancing at them and saying, oh, well, she must be undernourished or she must be overnourished. The reality is you can't tell. They're all framed out differently. They all look differently. The way you can really tell is to put your hands on their rib cage and feel across their rib cage. So in her case, she's a little sunken in on her side, and she looks like she may be undernourished, but when you put your hands on her side, you can feel that she's actually doing pretty good. So again, don't weigh too much credence on just looking. Actually lay your hands on them. So what am I looking for when I'm putting my hands on them? Or to say, what am I feeling for? Well, I'm feeling that rib cage, and when I feel that rib cage should feel like my hand. And I like to use this analogy, and some of you have seen videos in the past where I've talked about this. So when I talk about my hand, their ribs are going to feel just like your hand. So if their ribs feel like running your fingers over your fingers and all those bumps, that's a little too undernourished. If it feels like running your fingers across the top of the back of your hand like this, that's just about right. And if we get to where we're running our fingers and it's perfectly smooth and you're not feeling anything, that's a little over nourished. So again, we've got under, just right, and over. And again, don't weigh too much credence to what they look like. Actually lay your hands on them and check that way. All right, number 2, uterine prolapse. So this kind of goes hand in hand when we're talking about pregnancy. If we've got really, really big babies and it's putting lots and lots of stress on mom during the delivery process, this is going to lead to an increased incident of uterine prolapse. This can be just catastrophic to your flock. You really, really want to watch for this and do everything you can to do to prevent this. A really bad uterine prolapse can actually kill the ewe or doe. Even moderate ones can put them in a position where they can't have babies again. So again, watch the feed, uterine prolapse. Okay. All right, point number 3, rectal prolapse. You may be noticing this on your livestock, male or females, specifically if they're coughing or if they're trying to defecate. If you are seeing rectal prolapse, the number one reason for rectal prolapse is overfeeding. As you overfeed those animals, it puts lots and lots of pressure in there in the intestines. It pushes back in that direction, and when they try to poop or if they cough very hard, it's going to cause a little bit of that rectum to come out, and it should go back in on its own, but again, not good. We see this especially in our show lambs that have been docked really close. Again, number one cause of that rectal prolapse is going to come from overfeeding your livestock. All right, number 4 is decreased fertility. Now, we're getting ready to go into a very long couple of videos about genetics and fertility and all that kind of stuff, but in a nutshell, what you need to know is overfed ewes and does do not cycle as hard with as many eggs. This is a proven scientific fact, and you are going to set yourself up for either they're going to completely miss their cycle and they're not going to get bred, or you're not going to have as many eggs dropped during the cycle, and you're going to end up with a lot more single births instead of twins. Now, some of you may be thinking about flushing. You may have heard about flushing. Some of you may not. But if you've heard about flushing, I understand that during flushing, they say, well, you want to feed them really hard before they go into estrus and before they get pregnant. There's a difference between having a animal that was not fed really, really hard and then feeding her really hard right before breeding, as opposed to just having them fat and overweight all the time. And with this being said, we're going to go to point number 5, and point number 5 is kind of in the same realm, and this has to do with fat deposits on the udder. And this is probably something that you've never thought about before, but this again is a real issue and something that you really need to consider, and one that you can actually ruin your ewe or your doe. This seems to affect ewes more than it does does, but regardless, it does affect them both. The issue is fat deposits around the udders. Very important for you to understand that in the case where the ewes or the does have been overfed, you can get fat deposits that form around the udder, and it significantly decreases milk production, and this is very, very difficult to overcome. And you'll run into situations where the mom can't feed the babies or keep up with the babies at all. So again, those are the top 5 things to consider when it comes to overfeeding your animals. If you have questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. We appreciate the thumbs up. We appreciate the feedback. It helps other people out. Thanks for joining us again today. I am Tim from Linessa Farms Special